Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, but it is totally different to all the other cryptocurrencies out there you've heard of, all the copies of Bitcoin. And in this episode, I will explain to you why you should only focus on Bitcoin and forget all the rest of them. Welcome to Bitcoin for Everyone, the podcast simplifying Bitcoin for hardworking people who are on the fence about it, but serious about making big moves in their personal savings so you can secure your financial future, even in a system where working hard never seems to be enough. You may have heard that there are other cryptocurrencies out there as well as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency ever. It's the first one. There were some attempts at other types of e-cash or electronic money, but Bitcoin is considered the first cryptocurrency that's ever been used. And it existed for a couple of years until some copies started coming out. And obviously people looked at Bitcoin and the money started going up and they thought, I can make my own one of these. And then other people started creating their own. Namely, you may have heard of Ethereum. That's the second biggest cryptocurrency, but it is 4 or 5 times smaller in terms of market cap. It's much, much smaller. That's a huge difference. So Ethereum would have to go up massively in value for it to be able to rival Bitcoin. There's Cardano, Casper, Solana. I mean, there's a name for everything. There's a cryptocurrency about so many different things. You may have heard of also meme coins as well. Meme coins are just made up internet joke things. Dogecoin was the first ever meme coin. That was created to kind of take the mick out of Bitcoiners like me, people who are really into Bitcoin and think it's going to change the world. That was made as a sort of joke coin. And there are thousands released every day, and they're very often shopped to crypto investors as the way to get rich. And I want you to understand that there is a huge difference between Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies. I would put them all in the category. So far, I've never seen a single one that I think is useful or as useful as Bitcoin. I would put them all in the category of shitcoins. And you may have heard us talk about these things called shitcoins before. And sorry, it's a bit of a swear word. My children may hear this. That's the only time I'll use that. But they're called shitcoins because they are total rubbish. They're nothing compared to Bitcoin. And it is for these reasons, following why. The first reason is that there will only be 21 million Bitcoins ever in existence. You can't create more. It's mathematically impossible. It's hard coded into Bitcoin. It just can't be done. So anyone who says, they could just make more of them, that's not true. It's not possible to make any more Bitcoins. If you've got one Bitcoin, you will always have one Bitcoin, and they're never going to be able to inflate the supply of it like they do with government currency, so the dollar and the pound. If the government want to print some more of it, they can just create it or just type zeros into a computer and send it to someone, or send it to your bank, or send it to the NHS, or send it to government workers. That's how currencies work. And I think that's why people think, they could just make more Bitcoin, like you copy and paste it. No, it's not possible. But that isn't true for all the other cryptocurrencies out there, like Ethereum that you will have heard of. Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's actually 4 or 5 times larger than Ethereum in terms of market cap. So we've got a long way to go before it could catch up with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is by far the fastest horse in the race. But Ethereum has a lot more coins out there. Ethereum has 120 million coins in existence in circulation, which if you work it out, that means that it's just no way as valuable as a Bitcoin. If there were only 21 million Ethereums, it would be nothing basically. And people sometimes look at it and think, it's so cheap. But that's because there are so many of them. And it's very, very similar to the way that governments print money. If you have pounds in your bank and the government suddenly print thousands and thousands, millions and millions of pounds, it makes the pounds that you have worth slightly less. They're cutting the pie into smaller and smaller slices. And that's the same with all the other cryptocurrencies. None of them have a supply cap, which is what we call that, 21 million supply cap at 21 million. For example, Ripple, if you're a Ripple investor, you really need to look into it. I've done an episode on that a few episodes back. It is extremely corrupt. And you might think you've got a lot of Ripple and the price has gone up quite a lot over this last year. Great, that's brilliant. Sell now, take your profits and buy Bitcoin, because there are 100 billion XRP tokens. 100 billion. That is absolute madness, and 40 billion of them are being held by the founders and creators, and some of them have been given to Ripple Labs, which is the company that now manages XRP. It's an actual corporation. It has a CEO, a marketing team, huge HR department, offices all over the world. They relate with governments and they try and persuade governments to implement CBDC currencies. It's very, very shady, very dodgy. And when you're buying those tokens, what they're doing is they're taking some of their tokens when the price is stable, selling it so they can fund the company. It's not like holding savings in something which is uncorruptible. It's like investing in a stock. But it's not like investing in a stock which is regulated in the stock market. It's just another company that you've put some money into. So it's not at all like investing in a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. It's totally different. And the same for all the others. There's Dogecoin and Solana. There's like 540 million Solana coins. There's like unlimited Dogecoins. I think there's 150 billion Dogecoins in the world at the moment. Bitcoin is the only one that has a supply cap which is completely limited. The second reason is that Bitcoin is totally decentralized. Now that means that there's no CEO of Bitcoin. There's no one person or even group of people who are in charge of Bitcoin. And we saw this several years back. There was a thing that happened called the block size wars. Now, I don't want to get into all the technical details of it, but they wanted to be able to basically process more transactions of Bitcoin every 10 minutes to help it compete with other cryptocurrencies that can do faster transactions than Bitcoins. It seemed like a fair proposal. But what happened is a bunch of private equity guys got behind a group of programmers that were developing Bitcoin and tried to push them to change Bitcoin code. Like I was saying, they can't create any more Bitcoin. It's 21 million. It's set at that. If you want to, you need to get everybody in Bitcoin to say, yes, let's change something. But that just doesn't happen. It's not possible for that to happen because there are people like me who say, no, I don't want to change Bitcoin. And everybody needs to decide yes. And it just doesn't happen. So what these private equity guys did is they tried to get enough people on side to change the amount of transactions that could go through. And in the end, everybody just said, no, sorry, we don't like this. We don't like you big guys trying to push us around. We're not going to change the size of it. And so it just didn't happen. It was really worrying at the time. I remember being around and reading the news and trying to stay up to date with it. I was, oh my gosh, this could be the end of Bitcoin. But in the end, it triumphed because no one person or group of people can control Bitcoin. And that scenario, you can look it up, it's called the block size wars, proved it. Now compare this to all the other cryptocurrencies. Like I've already said, there's pretty much one person who runs Ethereum. There's a lot of people who program on it and develop it. But Vitalik Buterin, who's obviously a decabillionaire, maybe he's like once or twice a billionaire, because he's the guy who started it. He has a buttload of Ethereum coins. And he is very influential. And when he says stuff is going to happen, I mean, you may have seen recently he's come up with this whole plan for the future for Ethereum. And it's got all these flow charts and stuff on it and how Ethereum is going to change and become this different asset and move forwards. That's the most centralized thing I've ever seen. There's no one in Bitcoin that can print out a plan and say, this is where Bitcoin's going. This is the future of it. There's people just speculating about what's going to happen to it. But if you see a plan like that, it makes you think that looks like an organization. That looks like a company. Same with Solana. There's all ideas about what's going to happen with Solana in the future. There's a couple of people who are in control of that. Same with XRP. There's a couple of crooks involved in that who run it and control it, and they can pump the price and drop the price. If you own 40% of the supply, you can flood the market and drop the market and make it go up and down as much as you want. I like that Bitcoin is decentralized. It feels like secure and safe and that no one can mess with it. No one can come in and take control of my money. I enjoy being in control of it. And that is the second reason why I think Bitcoin is totally different to all the other cryptocurrencies out there. The final thing that makes Bitcoin different to all these others is that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that encourages a low time preference. Now, low time preference means you're looking far into the future and planning for things that are going to take a long time. And in this world where I feel totally consumed by stuff happening super fast and Amazon Prime and things happening really quickly and traveling fast, 3-second clips on Instagram, I just feel like Bitcoin encourages planning for the future, steady growth, slowly getting rich. Whereas all those other cryptocurrencies play into the vibe of the day, the vibe of the current time that we live in, which is get rich fast. I literally do not know why anyone would buy any of those cryptocurrencies unless, and this is the truth, if you've done it, you've tried to get rich quick. And that I've done them. I've done all the other coins. I've owned a bunch of them 8 years ago when the first alternative coins started coming out. It was like Ethereum and Litecoin were the ones that first sort of were around. I owned them. And the only reason I bought them is because I was promised or told by these people, buy this now, the price is going to skyrocket. Same with XRP. I had that I think when it first came out, I had XRP before I realized it was a scam, corrupt coin. the promise to you and to everyone else is the same as all the other things going on. The promise to you and everyone else is get rich quick. And it is not good for you. It's not good for anyone. What you want to do is you want to work at your skill, work at your craft, save your money, and just get rich slowly over time. It's not even get rich. It's actually just like secure your wealth, be able to just live and have something to live on when you retire and you get too old, and look after your children and look after your parents. All those other coins are playing into your insecurities. They're all scams, and they just want you to buy their coin so the price goes up and the founders will sell them. That is called high time preference. Bitcoin encourages low time preference, and that's what I love about it. You buy it. There were some times with Bitcoin, in the early days where you bought it and the price did go up quite quickly, but we're moving into a period now where Bitcoin is becoming more stable. There will still be ups and downs, but it encourages you to think about the future. That is a world where things are made well. Stuff is made really beautifully. You can think about, what am I going to be doing in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in my life? What are my children going to be doing in that time? Not, am I going to make $1 million this year or next year? No, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And if you do end up making a lot of money, who really is making the money out of that? How have you got sold this coin? What are they paying their PR teams to market to you for? There's always something shady going on there. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And if you do make a lot of money, it's probably because someone else has lost a lot of money. But with Bitcoin, when you're in it, everybody wins. The only way you lose with Bitcoin is if you sell it when the price fluctuates. If anyone bought Bitcoin and held it for 4 years, at any point in Bitcoin's time frame, even if you bought it at the top of one of the last cycles, if you held it for 4 years, you would still be in profit now. Bitcoin encourages low time preference and thinking about the future. And for all those reasons, Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the race. It's never had a marketing team. It's got the largest supply cap by around 4 or 5 times. There's no point getting involved in all the others unless you potentially want to lose your money. The best thing to do is just buy Bitcoin, hold it, and forget all the other cryptocurrencies. Save yourself the stress. Don't be looking at your phone the whole time, checking the price of these crappy coins. Just buy Bitcoin and forget about it for 5 years. And I don't guarantee, but I'm pretty sure you're going to be quite happy with that result.